Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Socially Unavailable podcast. Today, I'm joined by Emily Newhook, one of my good friend's sister, and also a good family friend. She's here to talk a little bit about her business and everything that she's been up to. How's it going, Emily?
Good, good. Thank you so much for having me, Jared. This is really cool. I feel like we're crossing paths once again.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's been a while too. It's been a
Full circle.
while.
I know. I know.
So
I
you want
love
to give
it.
a little introduction to who you are and give some knowledge about your business, E is Key?
Yeah, yeah. So my name's Emily Newhook, and I am located in central Pennsylvania, specifically in Lancaster. So for those of you who might know, we're known for the Amish. But yeah, we moved here about and we actually mean my brother. So Ben is how I know Jared, and we used to hang out together. So Ben and I are located in Lancaster, and in Central PA, and I do run a lifestyle management company that I started about 3.5 years ago. So we'll probably get into that a little bit later as far as what that means. But yeah,
Wow, 3.5 years.
it's coming up on 3.5 years, which is wild to think about. I feel like it's been a lifetime in a weird way. It's kind of just, it's almost felt like 10 years in the 3 years, but it's probably been because there's been so much experience in that.
I can imagine just how it's been. But wow, that's funny how you put it feels like 10 years in the 3 year span. That's awesome. So do you want to tell us a little how you got started into this industry of lifestyle management?
Yes. Man, that's a great question. I feel like it is a combo of different things. So back in 2016, I did an entrepreneurship program, which I would say was where my desire and kind of the drive for entrepreneurship started for me. And I would say prior to that, there was no concept of okay, I want to start my own business or I want to do something that's my own. I would say up until that point. So I did that program. It was very intense. There were some days where I cried almost every day, um, or like all throughout the day, just because it was so stressful. But I'm so grateful that I did that program because I feel like it's acted as the building blocks for what I'm doing today. So I did that program, and then I jumped into the world of hospitality. So I was in resorts and hotels for about 5 years, and I loved it. I would come to my shift early and I would leave late. And I think what I really appreciated in that setting was being the face of the property, kind of being the first impression for the guest, and welcoming them and making them feel at home. I really appreciated anticipating their needs. So, especially if they're regulars that would come every week, I just really appreciate getting to know them and then set up things that would be really special for them based on just their preferences or even getting to know them what brought them life. So, anticipating needs, putting out fires, and yeah, getting to know the people on a really cool basis. So, yeah, I feel like it's a combo of those things. I know it's kind of a lot. Um, and then I was working at a property um, 3.5 years ago now, and I started ESKey as kind of a side hustle. And then it just gradually built. So I was doing that full-time job, and then I was doing this on the side. And then I gradually ESKey just built up. So this has been my full-time thing now for a little over 2 years.
Wow. Okay, so it came from a lot, and it kind of all went into
It
one.
It did. It did. I will say this is on my website and this is kind of a story, and I would say this is the spark. There were a lot of different experiences, but I would say this was a spark that kind of started that. I would say the first spark. So back in One Life Entrepreneurship, which was the program that I did back in 2016, I we actually went to the Ritz Carlton in Philadelphia for a whole day, and the goal was to learn about customer service. I don't know if you know anything about Ritz Carlton, but they are known as like the best of the best as far as
Yeah.
like they are next level, and it's really hard to beat their bar. So, anyways, we learned all about customer service that day and how they treat their guests, and it really, I don't know, it really excited me how far they went for people to feel known and seen during their stays. But one thing they did was we had been asked, so there were 8 students in my program, and we had been asked at the beginning of the year what our favorite sweet and our favorite savory snacks were. And I answered, and I kind of forgot about it, but it was actually that day we had been asked by the leader of our program because the Ritz Carlton wanted to prepare for us, and they basically had little gift bags at each one of our place settings in at the room we were in with our names on it, and then all of our favorite snacks with like a handwritten note. And I just remember thinking, man, like the way I felt in that moment, I remember thinking that I wanted to carry that out and I wanted other people to feel that way. Um, so yeah, it's been definitely a compliment. But I would say that was a spark of like I want to do hospitality and I want people to feel that way through serving them and giving them peace of mind and anticipating needs and making them feel known. So kind of a compliment.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's so funny because I did read that on your website, and I was like, "Wow, they really went above and beyond to really with the hospitality." But that's awesome of how like that's where that was funny too because I had one of those that was one of my questions of like, what was the spark? What really started it? So that was good to know. Good to know that. And
Yeah.
then so that kind of like propelled you forward into ESK and of how you wanted to help everyone else, pretty much, or like,
Yeah, yeah. So, and I would say basically in hospitality, I would see a lot of people who are always on the go, always traveling, especially our regulars who lived on the road. I mean, if they were living at a hotel every week, that kind of gives you insight into how little, they spent time at home and how just on the go they always were. So I kind of saw a market for that, and I think it was a combo of what brought me life, which was anticipating needs, giving people space, preserving their mind and their space so that they could focus on what they were actually there for. So if I could take care of all the details of their stay when they would come, they could focus on their work or their meeting that day with as much peace of mind as possible. And yeah, and I think it played into there were again a lot of different things that I think I pulled from um, that made me ultimately, start E as Key. But yeah, it was kind of a mix of seeing that there was a market and a need for it, just understanding what brought me life and what was in my sweet spot. Um, so yeah, and then just being able to add value to my clients in that way. Super, super life giving.
wow, that's and I think it's such a great thing that you actually did start because it just the fact that you can just rely on somebody else to take care of like kind of like the little things so you can focus on something allows you to focus on the meeting or whatever the case may be. It allows them to focus 100% on it rather than like 85% they have the other 15 worrying about, oh, I gotta go do this still. So I think that's really amazing of how you started it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything.
Thank you. I
Of
appreciate
course,
that.
of course. And now, was there anything that prepared you or guided you to choose the field of hospitality and lifestyle management?
That's a good question. Um, to be honest with you, following so high school happened. High school, not some of my great years, and then I did the gap year program, and I did that for the purpose of basically I felt like I needed a year to figure out who I was, what I wanted. I didn't want to just jump into the expected 4 year journey of college and dish out so much money, not even really being sure what I wanted. Um, so yeah, I think there was a I think there was there were several different things that kind of led me. I didn't know that I always wanted to do hospitality, lifestyle management. I didn't even know lifestyle management was a thing um, until even not that long ago. Hospitality, I kind of just fell into. I would say I had actually gotten a job at my first resort just out of necessity. I needed a job. I had left the entrepreneurship program, kind of completely lost and not sure what I wanted to do, with actually a pretty bad taste in my mouth from sales and the program, just because it was so cutthroat. So the fact that I'm actually doing what I'm doing now, it was totally not planned. In the beginning, like I remember being in my gap year program and thinking through next steps of, okay, next year's coming and I'll have to have an idea. And I remember thinking that it would be cool to get into social work or yeah, to be a counselor. But then what actually kept me from going down that path was I didn't want to be known amongst my friends or my family as the counselor. Because I didn't want that title. And when I talked with
Yeah.
people, I want them to think I had an agenda. Like I just, I just wanted to stay away from that, but still be a trusted, a trusted person and someone that people could talk to. Because people always thought I should be because I don't know, people say I'm easy to talk to, or I just have good thoughts and good questions. And I wanted that to remain as a friendship and not like a counselor angle, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah,
No, it did. But that sorry, it did. You did answer the question. But that the whole the counseling thing. That's I liked how you're trying to, like you said, you don't want to be a that that counselor. It's so funny because it do, because sometimes people will label you as with your work, and it's not fun sometimes.
yeah. And yeah, and I didn't want people to feel like I had an agenda. That's like one thing I'm very cognizant of if I'm
Yeah,
talking to you and asking you questions, it's not because I feel like it's my role, my duty as a counselor. Like I just want to be a friend. So it might be a silly reason, and I've told some people that, and they just think that's silly. Like you didn't become a counselor because you didn't want to have like that title attached to you. But I mean, it must have. I view that as like a sign from the Lord because otherwise, I don't know if I'd be doing what I'm doing today. So, and I love what I'm doing today.
there you go. There
Yeah,
you go. Now I want to kind of like highlight the beginning of starting your company. What made you start ESKey specifically? Like, I know you mentioned of like helping everyone's lifestyle and trying to just be actual help. Was there any like specific reason of like this is what I want to do?
yeah, that's a great question. So, like my other responses and thoughts, I feel like it was a combo of things, but so it kind of came about during 2020. So during COVID, when there were a lot, I was working for a Hilton brand at the time, Hilton Property, and there were a lot of policies coming out, a lot of
Mm.
that I just didn't agree with. And I found myself in my manager's office almost every day challenging what new policy came out or challenging whatever was said about something. And I became his least favorite very quickly. But I found myself just, I think, really more and more there had been a seed planted, I think, back when I was doing the entrepreneurship program. And I think more and more, I think that time brought out that, Emily, you've wanted to start something that's your own. And with the pairing of the entrepreneurship program and my years in hospitality, I think I was able to figure out what that thing was. Um, and so I think the final straw was COVID and just a lot of things that I didn't agree with. And I think there was honestly this desire to really understand um, the why behind what I was doing day in and day out, rather than just we've always done it this way, or there's no open mindedness as to serving the guest as best as we can. It's like we resort back to like the way we've always done things or certain policy. And for me, I think there was always this desire to, um, yeah, to really, really like serve the guest without there being any obstacles. And so I think that even flowed into, yeah, like again, understanding the why behind what I'm doing day in and day out, but also calling the shots on why we do what we do and being able to serve the guests without any hindrances and any obstacles. And now those were guests, but now like clients ultimately is how it's translated over to. Um, so I guess just there was a desire to have my own spin on things and to just um, yeah, to like learn how to lead people and even those that have worked with me to create a safe space of open-mindedness and okay, maybe this was a flop with this client. How can we learn from that and how can we do better next time? And what questions should we be asking? And how can we ensure this doesn't happen again? Different things like that. I think just there was a desire to build more of a space of safety and collaboration and um, yeah, and also I think just to keep the main thing, and that is that the client is taken care of. And so yeah, I don't I don't know if that answers your question. Those are just some thoughts that I have.
No, of course. I like that. Keep the main thing the main thing. Now, a quick question, because so you're saying because you're working at like a hotel and everything, right? And also I love that you mentioned you said you're challenging like the manager, your boss. I love people who don't like just fall in line. I love the people who go out and say, you know what? No, we there's something we do. We like, why can't we do it this way? So I think that's super great. But and also with because you're saying you're working in hotels and everything. When you first started thinking of ESKey, did you originally think of doing like going to the hotel wise, doing something like that, or did your first thought was I'm gonna take it away from them, take a step further, and kind of go into their lives instead of having them come to a place and help them?
Yeah. Great question. I think it started as I wanted something that was flexible enough to work around my shifts and my full-time job. And
Mm.
so I think that's why I thought, okay, something that's flexible enough where I kind of scheduling is kind of on me as to when I'm doing things for people to an extent. And obviously I was starting from ground zero with absolutely nothing. So I was really I really didn't have a category in my mind yet for what it would look like, what the demand would look like, and the scheduling. Um, so I think yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think it just translated in over into, and I don't even know if I know the answer to that question. I think it was just I knew I wanted something flexible apart from my full-time job. And so it kind of looked like this, doing, I would say translating the things that translated over was what I was doing in a resort setting. Um, but again, the difference is going into the client's household or traveling on behalf of the client. But serving very similar clientele at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it was a mix of honestly maybe more logistics was the piece that kind of directed that of okay, I need something flexible, but I also don't have an office or a building nor the means to get like an office or a building. Um, but to that point, I would a desire of mine, and it's actually on my vision board. I would love to have a bed and breakfast someday. It's kind of like my goals from 40 when E is key starts to get a little I don't know, maybe get a little boring, who knows, but I would love to have a bed and breakfast. And I say that because I would love to get to know I still want it to be like a personable mom and pop type thing, but I don't want it to be an Airbnb. I want to make sure that I'm like meeting my guests and interacting with them. And I know with Airbnbs, typically there's a passcode, check in and you never get to see them. So I I'm all about the people. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like that getting to a bed and breakfast. I love bed and breakfasts.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so nice. Now, what are some of like key elements that have helped you build ESK?
Wow. These are really good. Um, yeah. So I would say being an entrepreneur is a very lonely journey. It can be. And I would say one of the key things, or some of the key things that have helped me build ESK has definitely been having support and collaboration. So there's a lot of networking groups out there. You can go to different events, but there's also, I would say, one of the biggest things. I look at this now. Were the mastermind groups that I would go to, and they were actually held at my co-working space. So that was a big thing, having a space that I could go and work at and be with other people who were in very similar boats um, where they were building something and it was kind of like they were their biggest fan and they were just really grinding it out. But also the masterminds um, would be a space where we would basically sit in a round table and we would go around the table and everyone would share the status of what's going on, their challenges that they're facing, or wins that they recently had. And it was just so massive, and it has been so massive for me in getting. I think one thing we don't think about is when we run our own business, we really only have ourselves. Like we have our one perspective. We only have our own brain, our own perspectives, and so to get other insights from other perspectives that might have been so simple. Like, hey, what if you did your pricing structure like this? And it might have been a slight shift, but it was like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. Or if I was struggling with a client on something of I don't know how to manage this, it felt so big and so emotional and like, oh my goodness, I can't even see anything else. I don't know how to handle this one client. And then getting insight from another person of, well, what if you just asked them this one question? Or what if you just said, hey, I'm going to start doing this now? and, just kept it really relaxed and really, matter of fact. I'm like, oh my gosh, that actually wouldn't be that hard. And that would change everything. So I think it was really helpful to have that outside insight, um, and perspectives and encouragement. Like on weeks where I just was in the depths of despair, I would have, just fellow entrepreneurs just cheer me on and say, "Hey, it will be worth it, and your vision is so worth it. You're not alone." And yeah, and ultimately keep going. Like you have what it takes. And so I think that helped just bring an element of rawness together. Um, and yeah, you have what it takes. It also just made anything that felt so big, just brought it down to ground level. And I was like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. Everything's okay. Um, so those were some things for sure. I would say too, I've had a lot of really great, and this kind of goes hand in hand, but a lot of great mentors. I might call up on a rough day, and they would just normalize my experience of, hey, you are a pilgrim in this. There's, especially this area, you are the first lifestyle management company in Lancaster County. You've been educating people because no one really knows what this is. And then, so you're educating for that first piece. The second piece is adding value. And then the third piece is allowing people to see where you fit in their life. And that takes time. Um, you don't have, it is kind of you, only you in it. And so it takes time. And a lot of businesses fail within the first, I think you might know statistics. I don't know them exactly, but I think it's like a good portion of them fail or in crazy debt, like the first couple of
Mm.
years. And so yeah, just validating those things of you're doing it. Like you're still alive and you're still in the game. So the mentors that know me and would cheer me on, but also challenge me. I would say those were some elements for sure. Um, but yeah, I think one thing too, and I think this is a side piece, but there's been so much character development for me in and amongst all of it. Like it's truly like nothing else on really hard days or um yeah, days where you just question everything. I think in my role specifically, there are so many judgment calls that I make in a day on behalf of my clients. It's not even for myself, which is hard enough, but for clients. And it's just it's not getting weary. There's the whole decision fatigue, which I totally feel at the end of a day. But um yeah, it can definitely be challenging, but it's just believing even when you don't feel it that you're doing your best and that it will be worth it and that you are adding value. So lots of character development.
Wow, but, that's awesome that you're kinda surrounded by people who are encouraging you and telling you, "You got this, don't worry, it's gonna be worth it." So, because sometimes like you said, it's a lonely journey, trying to start your own business, being an entrepreneur and everything, so but it's awesome to be surrounded by those people.
Yes.
Uh, now what obviously, starting a company isn't, walk in the park, there's a lot of things that come with it. What are some of the, biggest challenges that happen in the beginning?
Mm, Challenges that happened in the beginning. So I think one big thing was honestly, finding clients um, that had needs that my services fulfilled. So I had a lot of people that would come to me for just, I think for a time period felt like I was the catch-all position where I would help with social media and I would help with different things. I was willing to do it, and maybe it was, I don't know, organizing data or data entry or whatever that might look like. But I think it would have been so January of 2021 would have been when I started the business, and October of that year would have been when I got I would say my first client where I was actually doing what my services like that was a fit for my services. That wasn't kind of just a one off or okay, we'll fit this person in because I understand you have to start somewhere and you have to get your footing and okay, I will do this very mundane job and help someone even though it's not my thing. Um, because that I view that as experience and I view that as valuable and it was income and it was helping someone. So I would say October was of that year would have been when I got my first like client that fell within my range of services, which was so life giving. It was so neat. So, I mean, truthfully, I think finding clients was a challenge for sure. Um, But that client in October was to date one of my biggest and best clients I've had. And so grateful. And I felt like I almost needed that time to kind of warm up and kind of practice before I got to work with him. He was definitely very challenging. And yes, I was working a lot for him and I made a lot of impossible things happen. So I was really grateful for that. But I would say one of the challenges was definitely finding clientele in this area. And I will say, Jared, I think it is due to the market in Lancaster that has been challenging. Um,
Yeah.
one of them, yeah, that's one of the things. I don't know if there are any other challenges. Um, that like hit me out of nowhere. I would say that was probably one of the biggest ones. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, which I guess is a good thing. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, no, that's an amazing thing. Especially
yeah,
like you said, where in Lancaster. If no one's familiar with that, like she said, it's very a lot of Amish, a lot of land, a lot of so yeah, definitely that, but that's good that like that's only one of the challenges that really came with it. So, but you like you said, you got that one client and kind of like got your foot in the door of how you want to how do you want the direction you kind of want to go with ESKI.
yep,
It's awesome, awesome. And now, in the beginning, since, like you said, the only challenge was really trying to find the clientele. How did keep yourself motivated in the initial of building, like with the building blocks, with the initial building blocks? How did you keep yourself most motivated in that time?
yeah, yeah. I think I really, from the beginning, saw the value and I so believed in it. Um, and I think so. I actually go back a lot to Simon Sinek, and I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's really big on the why. He did a TED talk that was like massive, and I think about that a lot. And um, I think, to be honest with you, my why wasn't super strong in the beginning. I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know necessarily why, and that has definitely been a journey um, in understanding that. And I think even in the beginning, I felt like this sense of um, I don't know. I think when you don't have that solidified, it can, for me personally, I think it translated to even some like guilt for me of is my heart not even really in this? Do I just want to do it to make money or what's my why in it? And I think I struggled with the fact that I didn't it took time to understand my why. But I had really supportive people that would really just they would hold me accountable. They would say, "Ask why." So take what you're doing and ask why until you can't ask anymore. Like really drill it down, really, really boil it down, and um, and kind of go from there. So that was, yeah, I think it was a combo of working on that and believing that I would understand that and that I was putting the work in to really get that solidified and knowing that if that foundation was laid, which I was working towards, then it would be pretty solid. And grateful that I was working on that earlier on. I just thought of that. And then I think the other was, again, I really believed in the value that it would offer people. And I think I also was and am just so passionate about anticipating needs, um, making things happen for people. I think just again, I found what I got so much life in through hospitality. And so I think there were a couple of just drivers, like knowing that I wanted to do that, but I wanted to do it in a space where I call the shots on. Um, there were, I don't know, I was very motivated. I remember being just very driven in the beginning. And I got out there. I went to so many networking events every week, so many. And, yeah, it seemed to just really the connections and I think the interest and the curiosity of what I did was definitely a driver too. I'd have a lot of people saying like, "Tell me about what you do and who are you?" And there's a lot of excitement because that was almost a novelty to the business. The business is in Lancaster, and I was young. I would have been well, actually, I would have been 22, 20, 22. I think when I started. Is that right? Yeah. I
Wow.
just need to hear. But yeah, so I think I was younger too, so I think that was also something that caught people's attention of what is this, what is this girl doing? So I think I also too was very, and maybe this is actually one of the bigger things. I have always been a learner. Like I'm very much just someone who comes into a room and I want to just learn. And I think understanding what I was starting with of Emily, okay, you know no one really apart from those in the hospitality industry. You know very little about business, like you did an entrepreneurship program and you did some business administration um, classes, but understand your starting point. There is a lot you don't know. And I like the sooner you own those things and the sooner you come to the situations, maybe with a client, maybe they have an expectation of you and either you figure it out, which I will say I did a lot, whether it was Googling until I couldn't anymore, to figure it out, or um, or just being like, I want to help you with that. I'm gonna have to like this is what it will look like. So I think being very honest with myself of okay, Emily, you want to start your own business, you're starting your own business. This is what comes with the territory. There is a lot you don't know. There's gonna be I almost like expected to be disappointed at times or feel really low at times. But yeah, I don't know. So maybe setting my expectations accurately were part of it of, okay, like this comes with the territory and I can either say yes or no to it. Like any moment I can bow out, but I don't want to do that. So maybe myself permission of like, okay, this is challenging and yeah, like it took months for me to serve like I would say my first like real client. Um, and that doesn't mean any of my other the people that I served before were any lesser than, but it wasn't in my wheelhouse. I was really helping just with more mundane things. Um, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
100%. And I love that you said the boil down like asking why until you can't ask why anymore. And also, I know you did mention, yeah, you did mention the Lord earlier. So did that also play a huge role in this beginning and like getting into it?
yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. For sure. I look back, Jared, on when I first started E is Key, and just to give you an idea, December 28th of 2020 would have been when I was working a 3 to 11 shift at the hotel I was working at the time. And it was a slower night. I think it was a Sunday, which would always been slower from between 3 and 11. And I had this really just like planted in my mind, in my heart. And I literally Googled business plan template. I filled it out with the information, anything I had as far as a personal assistant business, and that's what I would have called it in the beginning. Filled it out. That was December 28th. January 6th of, so like literally maybe a week later was when I registered with the state to start the business. And everything I was, so that whole month, I actually built all of my branding. I built my website. I'd never done anything like that in my entire life. And it was this, I would say it was this incredible grace I feel like the Lord gave me because I look back on that now and I'm like, I built my own website. And I look back on that now, I'm like, how in the world did I do that? And where did I get the drive? It would have been a really, really rough year that year. And it was almost like the Lord just gave me this super, I don't know, this like super shot of energy and vision. Um, and so I look back on that time, I would definitely say, I don't even know. I'm sitting here today, 3.5 years later, and I'm like, that is wild. Because there was so much I was really like a pilgrim in it. I knew nothing. There was so much that I didn't know. Um, and so many challenges that laid ahead that I didn't know I'd be hitting. But yeah, I would say there was such a grace to do the little things, like whether it was you go to a networking group and work on my 30-second, sales pitch and what is a sales pitch and how do I do that well and how do I articulate well and how do I communicate to the other people in the room what I do in 30 seconds and how do they hear my heart for what I do in that 30 seconds. And um yeah, and yeah, so whether it was that or building my website or, working with a client and figuring out pricing and how do I be confident in what I'm doing when I don't really know what I'm doing. So yeah, there was definitely a grace there. And that I would say even motivates me to this day and is a driver to this day because I'm like, Lord, I know that you gave me what I needed to get start this. There's no way in the world that I would have done it if it was just my own will or like my own thing. So on days, you know, presently where it might be a rougher day or I'm just in a rough mental space of should I even be doing this, which they do happen, I will go back to that time. So I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that I have that to look back on too.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's exactly how he works. Like he
Yeah,
you
true.
put it in your heart, and then all this, you like you said, you just started filling everything out, and that's what he wanted you to do. And look at you today. Amazing
Yeah,
how he works. It's amazing. So
yeah,
not that you started this, this amazing journey of building this company and getting ready to, bring it into the world. How has it been expanding it? Like expanding ESK?
yeah, yep. So it has been um it has been quite a journey back to the character development. So Um, it's so ESQ has been existent for coming up on 3.5 years. In about midway through, so about a year and a half in, I would say it was kind of a pause to the business in the sense of I had a client that basically uh, came to me several times, 3 times to be exact, and really wanted me to be full time with him in his company. So what I ended up doing was I ended up taking a full time position there, and I ended up staffing out E is Key. So that was I would say, any rhythms and momentum that E is Key had kind of came to a halt a little bit. And I fully was aware of it. You know, I fully knew what I was signing up for. um, so I started to my existing clients, I had hired other personal assistants to basically take care of them. And that was really hard because it was such a quick transition. I think it was a month and a half before when they wanted me to start full time because they'd come to me 3 times. So it was over a very long span. By the time I had said yes, they wanted me to start like almost immediately. But I had to make sure my business was taken care of. So I was working with them for a time period. And I ended up coming back to the business full time. And when I did come back, it was kind of it felt a little bit like I was starting from square one. And so that has been interesting. I think, even today, I can look back and say, man, I'm not where I want to be. And I wish, in many ways, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball because I know where I could be. Um, or I have an idea about where I could be. I shouldn't say I know where I could be. We don't know anything, but we just can't forecast the future. But I think as far as growing it, I think it's been slower than I would have anticipated, but um, at the same time, like I'm grateful for the experiences I've had with that company, the consulting firm, and I was traveling all over creation. I really made amazing connections in that time period. So as far as growing, it's definitely been an uphill battle, and I think going back to the comment I had earlier about location, this area has definitely been challenging as far as there being a market for what I do here. So yeah, so it's definitely been a slower than I would like, and at times I get very frustrated by that fact, and then I think, man, should I just relocate to West Palm Beach, Florida, or Cherry Creek, Denver, Colorado, where I feel like I could get clients, like 5 clients in one week, and just because of the mindset, but also just the money out there out as well. People all the time say, "People have money here. People have money here." I hear that a lot, but I'm like, that's only part of the equation. They need to have the mindset of why they would have see the value and why they would hire someone like a lifestyle manager to oversee their life operations so that they can do what they do well. And I think depending on the clients, like what their how valuable their hour is. If they are a doctor making $300 an hour, as a cardio oncologist or whatever that might look like, if they can delegate a task so that they can work better on their art and what they do well, if they can delegate a task for even $100 an hour, they're still making a profit on their hour and they're allowing more peace of mind and more focus on what brings them life. So, yeah, it's definitely been a slower build in this area. Um, and gradually there's, I think, more and more transplants coming into the area, and those transplants better understand the value of this role in their life. So um, yeah, I'm also just trusting. I'm just trusting the process too.
Yeah, of course, and that's all you can do is kind of take it day by day and just that moment will come. Do you plan on moving out of Lancaster and expanding, or you just hopefully the relationships you build with the people that you do work with through ESKey for them to expand kind of for you?
Yeah. So that is a great question. It's a very timely question because that's actually something I'm processing right now. Do
Mm.
I kind of wait it out here? Because also I think the value of me being in this area where there's no market is that I kind of own this region in the sense that there's really no competitors in this area. But there's also very little market for what I do in this area. So do I wait until the transplants kind of move in? Or I've just built up a name for myself and I've educated well enough that people see the value, whether they're from here or not, that there's a market for it. So yeah, that's something I'm thinking about. That's actually something I'm praying about very actively right now of am I is this a way of the Lord's, kind of directing me to relocate, or am I to stay in this area and just kind of, yeah, I'm putting my hand to the plow for sure every day, but am I to continue to wait it out, just trust his timing in it? So I guess the short answer is I don't know.
And that's okay. It's okay because you'll wait and you'll get the answer. Eventually, the answer will come to you, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Who knows?
Yes.
But at
Yes.
least at least you're taking the time and not trying to just on your own trying to just like jump forward with it. So that's a good balance.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
now a
Thank
little,
you.
of course, and a little about kind of about how you run ESKey. How do you kind of balance the priority of the needs of your client as well as the needs of your like the employees and of ESKey? E is key.
Yeah. Yep. Great question. So at this point in time, it's primarily me as lifestyle manager, and then I do have contractors that will fill in here and there, but they are on a part-time basis and it's kind of as needed. So in that, it hasn't gotten to a point where it's been too demanding. There have been points in time, like over the past couple of years, where maybe I had someone that was working with me that only worked, maybe her days were Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a client would reach out to them on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a weekend. And in their minds, they're off, like they're not available. But for the client, this is their way of life. This is their lifestyle. This is their life operations, and that never stops. And that's not necessarily something that wait. So at times there were definitely challenges at the beginning of make sure if if the assigned lifestyle manager is not available on that day or whatever that may look like, that it's filtered to myself, so that I can take care of it. So that was just a matter of communication, but I'm definitely very cognizant. Like, I think there's something to be said for owning. So if I don't know, let's just say Sarah um is Joe's lifestyle manager, own the responsibilities and own as much as makes sense. But at the same time, I don't want it to overtake their life. If it's like on a weekend or something, that should be something that's, in the contract. So I guess respecting what was discussed and what the expectations are. Um, but yeah, I mean, it could honestly look like 24/7 depending on the client. It could look like I have one client where I hear the most from them on weekends, and in my mind, I usually respond Sunday evening because I'm usually forecasting for the week, and that's when I'll kind of hit those. But um, yeah, I think it's falling back on the verbiage in our agreement, which is like 24-hour turnaround time period. So if someone's contacting us at 9 o'clock at night with a request, we have until 9 o'clock the following day, even if they want it done by 10 a.m. the next morning. Um, so we have those things to fall back on. But going back to our values, like we really strive for excellence, and if we can execute without it, um, impeding on our personal life, and if I'm at my cousin's or my niece's, birthday party or something, I don't want that to take away from, my personal life. And I think there's something to be said too for if we are allowing a work-life balance to our clients and peace of mind and for them to have, really helping them towards health, we need to do the same for ourselves. and and that's something I actually struggle with a lot. Like right now, I need to do my laundry and I've needed to do my laundry. And I think it's challenging when you are like I, oversee and am constantly managing laundry for a couple of clients. And yeah, it's sometimes it gets a little it's like, man, I don't really feel like doing my laundry because I've already done it like 3 times this week for someone else. And so yeah, but it's also something that okay, but you need your clothes folded too, and your clothes matter too. And so yeah, that's something that can be challenging. Um, is to have motivation, I think, to do things for myself. Um, but it also translates into taking care of myself. It's not just, oh, I should go get my nails done. It's like, no, I should I should clean my car or I should yeah, just different things like that. I don't know if that makes sense. Or I should be forecasting out for myself in the next 2 weeks, which I actually do. So yeah, but sometimes it can be challenging.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And you're talking about a little bit. So, how do you maintain a better work life for you personally? I know you said you're trying and you're trying to do it for yourself and trying to work on it. But how do you still keep the balance between this is work, this is work, this is life, this is life?
Yeah. So I do time block. So I do try to forecast out like 2 weeks in advance, and I will look through and I just have things blocked off in my calendar. And whether it's quiet time, whether it's rest time, whether it's um, I'm very, very intentional. I do have like a 2.5 hour routine in the morning, and I get that in regardless of whether I have to wake up at 3 in the morning or 6 in the morning to make sure it's done before my first engagement of the day. So that includes like exercise and quiet time, and I make myself my protein shake that has all the nutrients that my body needs. And it's like seeing that as valuable and kind of the fuel to be able to do everything else well. Because I will tell you right now, if I don't get my workout in, or if I don't drink my smoothie in the morning, and if I don't have that quiet time, my day is not going to be great. And I'll probably actually, this has happened before, I will start to feel resentful for the tasks that I'm doing that day because I didn't have time for me. And I used to feel really selfish about that until I was like, no, I cannot drive my car if I haven't put gas in the tank. And it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like, oh, but I don't want to I don't know, I guess from the car's perspective, if if I am the car, like, I don't wanna have to spend time at the gas station, like, that's time away from being where I could be, transporting you to, but it's like, no, that's, like, such skewed thinking. So, I think seeing those things, like, if I need to take a nap in the middle of the day, and a lot of the time I'm traveling, like, all over creation, but if I am able to take a nap during the day, seeing it as, "Emily, if your body is signaling to you that you're tired, take that time and then have a 2 hour block after where you're working, maybe it's a little bit later, like until 8 o'clock or something, but give yourself, I think the theme of the last year especially has been give myself grace.
Mm.
um but kind of deeming it as it's all connected, like in the moments where you're taking time to eat lunch, um that is adding value to E is key. It's not taking away. It's not like you're taking 30 minutes and like you're not adding value to his key like I actually am. And the not eating of the lunch is actually taking away value because what happens is,
Mhm.
you want to hear about all this? Um, I actually get low blood sugar, so my I will crash, and then I won't be able to think well, like all of the things. So in it's actually taking a pause. Have you ever heard the term sharpening the saw?
Sharpening saw. No, I'm not familiar with that.
So basically, sharpening the saw, it comes from, so if you are in the woods, and there's like a whole story behind this, but it's basically taking time to sharpen the saw. So if you are in the woods and you're cutting down trees and you're just doing that all day, but you're not taking the time to sharpen the saw, so pause and sharpen the saw, you are going to take twice as long, 3 times as long to cut down those trees because you're working with a dull blade. So what you're trying, it's kind of counterproductive. If you continue all day with that dull blade, you're spending so much longer because you don't have a well working tool. Um, so it's kind of reminding myself, okay, sharpen the saw. Maybe today I need to have a day where I'm just on my laptop. I'm not traveling all over creation. I'm not talking to people on the phone. And maybe like have quiet time in the middle of my work. Like maybe it's like writing, like journaling or something, and understanding that that too is pushing that needle forward, if you will, and getting me to where I want to go because it's paying attention to the person that's moving it forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a good one, and it just like the way you set up your days is really well because it's really important. Like you
Yeah.
said, to sharpen the blade, sharpen the saw, sharpen the saw. It's really important. So
Yeah.
that's really inspiring actually. Then for me as well, for just to see how well you block out your days and block out your time, just to take the time for yourself. It's very important because we don't want to get burnt out. Definitely don't want that.
Yes. No, 100%. But yeah, time blocking is massive. I do it for my clients and I do it for myself. And it ensures that nothing falls through the cracks, as far as tasks or as far as your wellness. So it's kind of like, you know what? I am going to take a nap for this hour, let's just say, because I time blocked it out. And that, because it has like a time slot, it allows you peace of mind of knowing, okay, I looked at my week and I can afford this. So it's like you can rest a little better knowing that everything is kind of planned out, and it's kind of like everything has an assigned time slot. So yeah.
Mm, wow. And so now that you now I want to learn a little bit about like the structure and the leadership of of ESKey. How do you balance short-term goals with long-term vision for ESKey?
These are great questions, Jared. Yes. So, and this is something I'm actually in the midst of right now. I think I think I am in a time period right now where I'm really trying to discern what E is key is to look like. There's so many different avenues it could look like. So whether that's building a team up, whether that's me becoming, I've even, thought through, okay, do I thrive best when I'm actually working for one client? So maybe lifestyle management for one client. And then do they still fall under E is key? Like, are they hiring me through E is key? Like, what does that structure look like? Or if we're going the team direction, if I'm hiring on other lifestyle managers, um, what is kind of the trajectory for that? So I think you're asking about short-term goals and then long-term vision. I think I am revisiting that because I would have said that I wanted to grow E is Key and have 3 locations in the next 5 years, one of which would actually be in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then Cherry Creek, Denver, Colorado, and then the other location would actually be closer, so in Westchester, closer to Philadelphia, so like right outside of Philadelphia. Um, and I am still very much so open to that. I think I've been talking with just some mentors of mine of, okay, if the vision, and I'll just share this, like right now, I feel like what's in my heart right now to do is I would love, and I think this is just again what I'm thinking about. I would love to serve and basically like one VIP client, and have that kind of be my main client, but then also oversee and run and kind of have E is key, with multiple different lifestyle managers serving different clients. So I guess it's the best of both worlds because I know I thrive well when I'm able to focus on one client and kind of be their go-to for every arena. Um, but then also I would love to raise up and just lead and guide and yeah, develop other lifestyle managers to create the same value. So that's kind of the long-term vision, and it's shifted a couple of times for sure. I definitely know I've learned what I don't want it to look like. I don't want it to look um, like a membership where people like become a member and then we're like on call as needed type thing. I think I really want more relational, more day to day on location, not just, a team that's there for you whenever you need it. Like, yes, to an extent, but I want a designated lifestyle manager that's actually, I have a vision of there being kind of a menu of lifestyle managers that are then paired with certain clients based on personality profiles that I have my clients take actually, as well as my staff typically. So because some personalities just work better with others, some wirings work better with others. So that would be incredible to pair up accordingly. Um, so as far as long-term vision, that has been something that I've been thinking about that would, yeah, that I would really like to do. And as far as short-term goals, I think it's just continuing to, um, yeah, continuing to build the name, ESK here, continue to educate people on what I do, what we do. And yeah, and I call it in my mind, I call it all the time the golden client, just hoping that in and amongst as I'm sharing and marketing and going to networking events, that will be that one client that, um, yeah, I can truly, yeah, that I can really add value to in all of the arenas. And I would say now we have a structure where we get three package offerings, and clients basically it's based on level of support. So we have clients on all different ones, different packages, and so some, it's only piecemeal, like some support here, some support there, whether it's maybe overseeing their pets, overseeing some portions of their household, maybe it's vehicle management, maybe it's meal prep, but it's not like a 360 life operations, if that makes sense. And I have found that's where I thrive. That's where I thrive the most. So to have an avenue where I could do that would be awesome. But yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of that's kind of the short term of continuing to, build up the name. But I also I actually just added a VIP package to my package offerings. And that will be the 360 life operations. So yeah,
Nice. And it's good because everyone always asks the same. I feel like well, for me personally, I feel like everyone always asks, "What's your 5 year goal? What's your 5 year plan?" What always asking that same question. So it's good to have it, but it's good also just to take it day
goal
by day. Yeah. Uh
at
huh.
least.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
now real quick, 'cause I also want to touch on you like mentors. I know I've had a couple in the past. And they do play a big role of just how like when you have questions and anything. How much have they played a role with you of with the Yankee?
Massive, massive role with E is key. So I have one, oh my goodness, I feel like I could talk, it'd be a whole nother podcast. Um, so I have one mentor, Paget. Her name is Paget, and we would have met before any of this ever started. And we actually met when I was working at my first property, so my first kind of debut into the hospitality world. And I remember we sat down for lunch and we had met through her brother that had said, "You need to meet my sister. She has red hair too, so we're kind of two peas in a pod." And yeah, so we got together for lunch, and she I would say was the first one that kind of planted the seed. I would say like the spark came later, but like the seed I would actually say was from Paget. So we were sitting across each other from at lunchtime, and I was telling her what I was doing, and she said, I just see you. She said, I don't know if there's like a title for this type of role, but it really ended up being what I'm doing now. But she was saying, I could see you just setting up people's days or itineraries and really just like taking care of them from start to finish. And she said, I don't even know, I'm kind of just thinking about it. This is the first time she'd ever met me. But I was telling her about what brings me life, what I enjoy doing. I was telling her that I loved it at the name of the property I was at the time was the Eat Resort. Um, and so, yeah, so I remember thinking about that, and she said a couple of other things, that I can't remember right now, but I remember just thinking, yeah, whatever that is, and I'm not even sure what that title would be either. I kind of want to do that. And so it was interesting that she kind of saw me doing well in a role like that, that was basically setting up people's days, like setting them up with reservations, kind of a 360 life operations support, honestly, is what it ended up being. And so she has seen me through my entire journey. And every time I see her now, and we might be like in a group setting, she'll just start crying and she'll just say, "I'm so proud of Emily." and because she's really seen me from like when I was a baby to now, like I'm 3.5 years in it. And at the time she would have said, like, I wouldn't have known what that was, but like you're doing exactly what I had a vision for you to do. So she's played a significant role in my life. I also had, and I still do have, I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but he was really big in the beginning. His name is Chris. And he was actually a guest at one of the properties I worked at. And he had come in with some business cards because he was actually helping one of his mentees start up one of their businesses. And so I was just like, good for you guys, because I was in the beginning stages of E is Key and I was just all entrepreneurial minded, and I had said, "Good for you, like, I'm in the same boat, I'm trying to figure it out." And he was like, "Oh, well, what do you do?" And I said, "I do personal assistance." And so he really helped me. He's mentored me so much, and kind of on really rough mental, battle days where it's been like, "Man, should I even be doing this? What am I doing?" He's really just been super supportive. He's brought a lot of perspective. He comes from a wealth of just knowledge and business experience. He was the owner of a marketing company in New York, like a very successful company, and he's now retired. So I've just been so grateful for his support. Um, and yeah, other mentors and just I think friends. I have another friend whose name is Chris as well, actually, who does consulting all over the world, and he's really um, he's quite incredible. He's quite amazing. He is very just very emotionally intelligent, and in conversations with him, he's become like one of my closest friends. He's basically said like, Emily, you're wired this way, and so this is gonna bring you life, and this is gonna be a drainer for you. And I can see he's a strategy genius, and he said I can see in the next 5 years this will be the breakdown for you. And so how can you prepare yourself now so that you don't hit, so you don't like walk off a cliff. And so that's been super helpful. And like, yes, like I so resonate with that. And yes, I'm now seeing that too, that won't be sustainable, or this will be sustainable. So he's been really an incredible mentor in terms of self-awareness and strategy, and how can we prepare ourselves now so that when that time comes, we're going to already be prepared, or we're going to know to pivot now so that we don't go there. Um, so that's been really, I'm so grateful for Chris too. So they've been massive in just keeping things in perspective, like days where I would, it was in the beginning actually, Chris, the one with the marketing experience and had a marketing company. I remember one time I was putting lining or something in a client's drawer. They just bought a house. It was this massive house. And I think I was putting, what are they called? Just like mats in the drawers so that they're like grip mats. I think they're grip mats. And, yeah, and I remember this client basically was taking up, I wasn't growing the business because I was like, this client was all consuming. And I loved what I was doing, but I thought, I want to grow ESKey. So I was talking to him on the phone as I was filling these drawers one time. He's like, Emily, you are in like the beginning stages. Like you have one client that literally is full time for you. He said, that is incredible. And he said, think of it as, he said, you are this these are like your training grounds, like your training years. It's not like you went to school for this, not that there really is school for this type of thing, but he said just think of it as you're getting paid basically to learn. He said like that's he said it like, and it for I remember that day it just flipped everything for me of like, wow, that's so true. I am still like in my first year of this. I'm getting paid so well, and I'm kind of learning as I go. So, I need to, like, stop having a bad day. Stop having a bad day. Uh, so, like, just perspective, you know?
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man. And then mentors, yeah, they do play such a big role, such a big role, and like especially in this, especially having like access to those to both Chris's and your third friend, it's just with their
Yeah.
knowledge, it is so. I think it's so great and so important to have just to learn from somebody like that to so you can grow in the direction you want to grow in. Um,
Yeah.
with um with your business, it requires a lot of effort. and maintaining and growing new relationships. How do you balance bringing on new clients and retaining positive relationships with current or past clients?
Yeah. These questions are so good. I'm kind of blown away. Um, so that is a great question. And it is something that I will probably ever be growing in and improving in. Because unfortunately it's there's just one person and that's me as far as that's really representing. I mean, I've had some people, but they can't represent it like I do, the company. So if I'm at a networking event, but also a client, I always have my phone on. I'm always, I try to be as prompt as possible with responses. Um, and I really do my best. I think it's setting the client's expectations well of if I'm going to like if I onboard a client that I know is just going to be higher maintenance, or they're going to have expectations that are a little bit just higher. I have the choice to say yes or no to them. I don't, and that's the beauty of running my not like I'm assigned to someone and I have to be with this family for a year or whatever it might look like. So I think when I do that, it's like, okay, Emily, it's kind of like mental note. I need to be cognizant of this and this person's lifestyle and their expectations when it comes to the rest of my clients and my schedule. So, um, I think in time too, you do learn clients' rhythms. So, one client they might travel once a week or something. And maybe I don't hear from them when they're traveling. Maybe like they just are so busy when they're traveling, I don't hear from them. So then I can kind of pack things in during those days, so that I'm not as call as much. Um, but it is, I mean, Jared, I will say it can be really challenging. And I think the biggest thing for me is not getting caught up in the mental battle of no matter what I'm doing, I always feel like I should be doing something else or I feel like I should be somewhere else. Um, because that's not helpful either. And I think what that mindset actually allows for is for me to not be all in with whatever task I'm putting my hand to in the moment and with wherever I'm at in that moment. If I'm always, I mean, it kind of goes back to like, if you're always looking for the next thing, you're not going to appreciate or enjoy the thing that's right in front of you. And at the end of the day, that's all we have is this moment right now, this moment, not the next moment, not the past moment, but this moment. So I think it's really helped me to be all present for where I'm at in the moment. So, like right now, I am talking to Jared and I am all in. I might have a thousand things after this. I've had a busy morning, but this is what I have right now. This is all I have. So, and this is all that is known. Um, so yeah, as far as like your question, balancing all of it, it is a balancing act. It really is. But um, I think the magic is in where I allow my brain and my emotions to go of man, I didn't execute on that or I didn't get back to them in time. And it's kind of like I think another thing I want to say to that is owning it. Like owning being humble, one of our values is humility. And I think that's one very big thing of, hey, I did not get that in timely manner, or I dropped the ball on that. I'm so sorry. And here's how I can make it right. Here are the options. This is not the option you had in mind initially, but here are other options. How can I make it right? Um, and it's coming to just, I think, an understanding too that you're human at the end of the day and you will mess up. There is such a thing as human error, unfortunately. um, and so, yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. It's definitely challenging, but I do think the whole mental piece is where that makes or breaks it. That could get you really stuck or it could propel you forward. And I think too, it can allow for it to be a greater opportunity for the client to appreciate you or feel the value of your services more. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's really, I think, your perspective on it, but it is a struggle and I'm not perfect at it.
And but it's good that you have the realization, and I love the moment thing. I love just to be in the moment. That's awesome to look at that, and the way you kind of just like look at ESG, but also just like life in general, just amazing. And also how you can compartmentalize everything is
Yeah.
insane. Because I'm not that great with trying to hold on to a lot of tasks and organization like that in my head. Well, with with lifestyle management, we know it could be very physically and mentally demanding in the workspace and everything. But we kind of want to focus on the rewarding part and the positive aspects of ESKey and your business and everything. So what has been the most rewarding with the ESKey?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I think one of the most fulfilling things is being able, first of all, to have access into these clients' lives. It's very personal, and there's so much trust that um, yeah, that the client has an E is key to be able for us to serve them well. And so I consider that an honor, and I don't take it lightly. So whether it's access to their bank accounts or access to their credit card information, passports, whether it's yeah, keys to their house or passcodes to their house or you know codes to their safe or whatever it might look like. So it's and or just being left, to manage their household and all of their items and drive their cars and um so I consider that an honor for sure. I think one of the most fulfilling things though in what I do, and I'll try to articulate this as best as I can. Um I think who we get to serve is the biggest thing about what we do. So I'm very passionate about serving the movers and the shakers and the people who are really making a difference in the world, whether it's the doctor that works in the emergency room, and he is always on call, and he gives so much of his life to be able to serve and support people who just work insane hours, and kind of give back in that way, like you give so much of yourself for others, and to be able to, I mean, whether it's folding laundry or to take care of your vehicles with any interest, so that you can, feel taken care of. I mean, they take care of people all day long. That is so fulfilling. Or maybe it's the business owner that, is so passionate and they believe in what they're doing, and it's just their heart is so in it. Again, to be able to serve them and give back to them is massive. But we are super passionate about serving time crunched high achievers. And I think high achievers translates into people who really want to make a difference, and to be able to come alongside them. And I actually often think about this. I've been thinking about this a lot in the last couple of months, but I feel like the perfect picture is kind of for those of you who know, Pepper Potts and Iron Man, in the sense of like he's able to go and literally like be a superhero and save the world and do his thing. He's a genius, and he's able to spend as much time as he does on his thing because a Pepper, like really Pepper kind of takes care of him, and she makes sure that he's eating, and he has his clothes on his back, and she has a social security number memorized and he has no idea what it is, and it's kind of like the practical thing. She's able to support him, and it's only because of that he's able to do what he does and do it well. And so I think it's so life-giving for me to do what we do so that the clients can do what they came to the world to do and to do it well. So whether it's the artist who needs time and space and quiet to like really get into their art and get into their space so that they can produce some of their best work. Um, that's just so life-giving while we're back maybe at their household or households, or setting up their travel for their next um their next show or something. That's so life-giving, because it's allowing for them to do their magic in the world, and do it well while we do what we came to do well.
Wow. For everyone who didn't catch a reference, it was a Marvel reference. Just so everyone was wondering, but that's amazing that you put it that way. Because, like you said, he's like you said, superhero. He gotta go do his thing, and for her to take care of everything else is it's a great perspective to put it of exactly what you want to do and what ESK is all about.
Yes,
And
yes.
now I know you have all types of clients, and they can range from far and wide of what they need, what they do personally for for their their work. What is one thing that you want every client to take with them after working and working with ESKey?
Mm. Um, wow. And do you mean like in working with E is key to experience in the day to day?
Yeah, like what's something that you want every client to take away with them after they experience working with you?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. And it's funny, a lot of the time we're kind of the little elves that are working behind the scenes. And a lot of the time we might honestly not see our clients. But I would say one thing, I think more capacity. That's the thing that comes to mind, like more capacity, and that the implications of that are broad. So more capacity because they have peace of mind because XYZ is done or checked off, or they know, like they've trusted that XYZ will be done, so they can then focus on the task at hand, and that's no longer on their plate. It's gone. Um, so I would say more capacity is what we strive to deliver for our clients and provide.
Okay, wow. And I can imagine afterward they feel like they can take on the world after having you guys, oh, what's some advice that you want to give others that interested in the career of lifestyle management or simply with starting a business?
Hmm. Oh my goodness. So I think going back to what I shared earlier, if you have been wanting to start a business, if it's been on your mind for a little bit, or you just started thinking about it, or you feel you're called to do it, I one of the best gifts that I think you can give yourself and your business is starting with that why question. So if it's you want to paint canvases, if you want to create a shirt company, if you want to have uh, a grass mowing service, whatever it might look like, I would really encourage you to really zero in on your why. Because if you have that solidified, that will catapult you on your worst day. You will have that to go back to, and that will get you through the toughest of times. Um, and you will have that when you have a strong why, people know it, whether you verbalize it or not. Um, and so it's not only an internal thing that's fueling you, but it also is attracting people to you. Um, so that's one thing I would say. Another thing I would say is after you've like analyzed your why, I would say don't think, just do. This has actually been a quote that has been massive for me because I tend to be an overthinker and I've gotten a lot better at it. But that was actually one of the mentors when I was in my entrepreneurship program. He was like, Emily, you think way too much, like, don't think, just do. And that allowed me to basically sometimes when you do think about things a little too long, you just don't end up doing. And I think for myself, I learned things that I needed to just do. Don't think about it, just do. Because there is an art. Like sometimes you really should think a little bit about it before you do it. But I will say for the overthinkers out there, don't think, just do is massive. So those would be some things just in terms of starting your own business. That come to mind. As far as lifestyle management, personal assistance, um, I would say the same thing, like zero in on your why. Um, I think one thing I would say, I actually read an article about this a couple years ago, and it really has stuck with me since. But they talked about this role and how it's truly, as you can probably hear and see, it's a wide gamut of services. You know, it could be anything from, oh my goodness, it could be standing in for a meeting for a client. It could be, being flown to Australia to set up a property for them, an investment property, and like furnish it and set up all the contractors and make sure it's running well. Um, it could also be taking the dog out to go for a walk or something. So it's kind of the one thing I would say would be keep the main thing the main thing. At the end of the day, whether you're picking up dog poop or you are on a private jet flying to Australia to be in a meeting for on behalf of a client, you are preserving their brain space. You're giving them back time. You're creating peace of mind. You're becoming with each task a trusted advisor, a trusted liaison, um, and it truly is like I consider it nothing short of a gift. but expect that you will need the humility enough to be okay, like scooping up dog poop, but also like have the confidence and the wherewithal and the flexibility to go and stand in a meeting and listen and take notes and be curious and care about what's going on because you care about the client and because you know how they're wired, you know what they're going to value, you know that by taking care of the dog earlier that morning, that was actually a bigger deal. It wasn't just about taking care of the dog. It was about thinking about what's on the client's plate and knowing that was just as valuable as being in on a meeting with top executives. So I think be prepared for being flexible in your thinking, but also the confidence and the humility. Like there's just, and I'm not going to say I'm perfect at it. I am not perfect at it. But I think I have to remind myself in moments where it's like, I don't want to do that, or I don't, or man, that sounds like just whiplash of jobs. And it's kind of like, yeah, but the thing that has in common is that I am serving the client with the thing that's most important to them right now. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So everyone's listening, please listen to everything she just said because that was some great advice of exactly like she said to just especially with the overthinkers because I feel like there's a lot of those people, especially when wanting to start something. It's important. So please, if you're listening, please listen to what she said. So as we get closer, I got a couple more questions for you. But for starters, thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on the show and coming on the podcast.
Yeah, that's an honor. Thank you for asking me and like such good questions. I feel so honored by the questions.
That in between, well, I did a lot of props and thankfulness goes to my wife because we I tend to write out questions and then she tends to give her twist and then we kind of just like mash them together and then try to make the show and the questions out of it. So I'm very thankful for her. But what's next for E is Key?
Mm, yeah, I think it kind of ties into um, the question you had about short-term goals and long-term vision. Um, Continuing in as much as I can see right now, and I feel led to continuing to serve clients here and build a base here. I will also be dipping my toes in the water and doing some business development in West Palm Beach, Florida, just to get a feel for that will actually be next month, just to get a feel for the market out there and see what opportunity can be had out there. So the goal and the hope is that ESKey continues to build in every arena, whether it's processes and softwares that we use, um, team development, clientele continues to grow and improve. And and then the hope is that there are a couple VIP clients who have had that 360 life operations, um, yeah, support. So that's kind of the vision and the hope. And yeah, and again, I hold it loosely. I know what my desires are, but I also know that something might come from left field that I did not anticipate, and it's like the best thing ever. So yeah, I hold it loosely, knowing that like E is key 3.5 years ago, I would not have said it would look like this now. Um, but yeah, it's definitely come. It's yeah, it's taken on its own thing and it's been really really cool, and I've learned things I never would have anticipated along the journey.
Mm, awesome! I can't wait to see E's Key on on all these different states and just on billboards, maybe even.
Yeah.
so, so I like to give all the guests to let the listeners kind of know where to find you, how to get like pretty much everything about you, where they can find you, what you offer, and anything else you want to share. So if you want to take the time to
Yeah.
share those.
Yeah. So E is Key Lifestyle Management. I am on Instagram. ESKey.co is the handle. And then Facebook, we do have a page, E is Key. And there's a little skeleton key as our logo if you need some visual reference. And then we also are on LinkedIn and we have a page as well. Um, and then as far as the services we offer, so anything from household management to travel arrangements to small event coordination and support. Um, and it could be it could be pet overseeing pet um, management, so grooming appointments, vet appointments, um, yeah, it could be. So I think I mentioned travel. It's truly dependent on the lifestyle. Those are some of the services. Um, and then some executive assistance as well, depending on what that looks like, and how much support is needed. And we sometimes overlap with an existing executive assistant or admin assistant. But ultimately we act as the main liaison for all the avenues, whether it's business contacts, whether it's contractors for the house, whether it's setting up with friends, different things. So yeah, but we act as the main liaison for all of those many things. Um, and yeah, so I think, and what was the other thing?
Anything else you would like to, add on, or yeah, anything else you want to?
Okay, yeah. So, um, I'm so honored to be on here and share about E is Key and yeah, the services we offer and the value that we've offered. And yeah, I hope this is encouraging for anyone that's thinking about starting their own business or, yeah, wants to do something similar. And I would totally be open to talking to anyone who would want to do something similar. And yeah, just talking through what that could look like. And yeah, I would definitely be open to that. But thank you so much for sharing and asking questions. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Of course. I will be sure to put your Instagram, your website, everything down in the description and in the show notes. So everyone who's listening, if you want to go reach out to Emily and see the services and see your website, please click the links. I'll be sure to put down your Instagram, everything for that as well for anyone who wants to reach out to you if they have questions or anything along the line of starting business or what you do. So I'll be sure to put that down in the bottom. Thank you once again, Emily, for taking the time out. It was such an honor, such a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, you too, Jared. So happy to reconnect and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It definitely was. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to click back next week for another episode, and thank you again once again, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely.